Something that I really enjoy doing on this channel is breaking down Bret Hart's biggest matches. This also happened purely by accident. There was never any intention to make a series that focused on the in-ring aspects of the Hitman's biggest matchups, but over time, I've uploaded videos looking at the WrestleMania 12 Iron Man match, the Mr. Perfect match at SummerSlam 1991, the Hart vs Piper match at WrestleMania 8, the unforgettable submission match against Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13. Bret Hart's matches are something I've went back to time and time again, and I guess it kinda shows how much of a fan I am of the Hitman. You've heard time and time again that Bret Hart told stories through his matches, and I guess that plays into why it's so easy to talk about them. No matter what you might think of the excellence of execution, he was an absolute master of crafting matches that made you care. Every move meant something, nothing was wasted, while everything he done inside the ring made sense in the context of the match and the overall storyline he was involved in. So I want to continue looking at the Hitman's matches and maybe create a full series that celebrates Bret's contributions to wrestling. And today I thought I'd look at one of the best WWF matches of 1995, the Survivor Series Bret Hart vs Diesel match. Diesel became the WWF Champion towards the end of 1994. In the recent Two Dudes with Attitudes documentary uploaded to the WWE Network, Kevin Nash admitted that he was still very green when he became the company's #1 guy, but he wasn't going to let an opportunity like this pass him by. Diesel defeated Bob Backlund to win the gold in Madison Square Garden, and Bob Backlund had defeated Bret Hart for the belt just 3 days prior at the 1994 Survivor Series, so naturally the legendary Backlund was seen as a transitional champion, someone who would act as a bridge to pass the belt over from one babyface to another. Diesel, of course, had been previously associated with Shawn Michaels, who at this point was a heel through and through, and because of this association, Diesel had also been a heel throughout his entire WWF run. But because Shawn had accidentally superkicked Diesel one too many times, Diesel was made into a good guy at the 1994 Survivor Series and he won the title 3 days later. Big Daddy Cool's first big pay-per-view title defense would happen at the 1995 Royal Rumble, and Diesel's opponent would be none other than Bret the Hitman Hart. The Royal Rumble Diesel vs Hart match was solid, an interesting babyface versus babyface match that was maybe let down ever so slightly by the match finish, a finish that was put in place to protect both men. Just a quick side note, this wasn't the first time Bret and Nash faced each other on pay-per-view. The two men had a match at the 1994 King of the Ring where Bret was the champion and Diesel was the challenger. Again, it's another match that had a finish put in place that would essentially protect both men. Shawn Michaels interfered throughout the match and Jim Neidhart got Bret disqualified in the end. This was all done to further Bret's feud with brother Owen, as it would turn out Jim had sided with the eventual King of the Ring winner on this evening. So yeah, the mid-1994 matchup was a bit messy, but this didn't stop Diesel getting pushed to the moon throughout the year. Going back to the 1995 Royal Rumble, Hart and Diesel had a near 30-minute matchup that again was riddled with outside interference. Shawn came out to attack Diesel, Owen came out to attack Bret, and towards the end of the match, so many people came out to interfere that the referee decided to call for the bell, officially ending the match in a draw. That's 2 pay-per-view matches featuring Bret and Diesel where fans didn't get to see a true winner. Diesel spent the majority of 1995 as WWF Champion, while Bret Hart would work with a ton of different superstars. And to me, it kinda felt like Bret had lost his purpose while Vince McMahon kept this Diesel project going throughout the year. This isn't to say that Bret wasn't having good matches in 1995. His match against Brother Owen on the March 27th episode of Raw was great, and also it's seriously overlooked. And his match with Hakushi at In Your House 1 would receive a lot of praise. But the company was all about Diesel in 1995 and, to a certain extent, the rise of Shawn Michaels. The Diesel vs Michaels match at WrestleMania 11 was good, while Big Daddy Cool's feud with Sycho Sid and his match with King Mabel at SummerSlam had been poorly received. And that's not to say that Bret didn't have a bad match or two in 1995 either. The Hitman says his match with Bob Backlund at Mania 11 was one of the worst matches of his whole WWF career. But anyway, Diesel's time as champion in 1995 is seen by many people as a failure. I talked about this previously, but I think it's harsh putting all the blame on Kevin Nash. Booking Diesel into matches against the likes of Sid and Mabel just didn't work, and judging by the Two Dudes with Attitudes documentary, Diesel still felt he was very inexperienced while carrying the WWF title. Guys like Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart could play into Diesel's strengths and produce excellent matches with the big man, but others simply couldn't, and I think a lot of that should fall on the people who book the matches. Nash had to work with what he was given, and he was given opponents who couldn't make him look good. Business was down too, and nobody in the WWF at that time period could improve the numbers. Not Bret Hart after Diesel's run, not Shawn Michaels after Bret's run. People just weren't watching the WWF as much, and I always thought that placing the blame on the company's hand-picked champion was a cop-out. On the flip side of this, and to balance out the argument, it's not like Nash cared all that much about being WWF champion, at least not in the same way as maybe Bret or Shawn would care. While the Hitman and the Heartbreak Kid had goals of becoming WWF champion, Kevin Nash said that his WWF goals centered around becoming wealthy. Wrestling purists may scoff at Nash's statement here, but I think it's great hearing someone being so honest about their aspirations. WCW launched their Nitro show in September of 1995, and Vince McMahon knew he had some real competition on the horizon. Shawn Michaels was being set up to become the WWF champion and the leader of the new generation. His victory was going to take place at WrestleMania in 1996. And to really give Shawn that seal of approval, he was going to defeat Bret Hart, not Diesel. Due to business being down and WCW creating a lot of buzz over on TNT, the decision was made to put the belt back on Bret Hart and begin building towards a babyface versus babyface match at WrestleMania between the Hitman and the Heartbreak Kid, the WWF's two most popular stars at the time headlining the company's biggest show. I've already talked about how I don't necessarily blame Diesel for the WWF's decline in 1995, but that doesn't mean the WWF didn't see it that way. So the decision was made to pretty much end the Diesel project of 95 and go with something a little more familiar until Shawn Michaels won the belt at WrestleMania, kinda killing two birds with one stone. And just to get it out of the way, yes, Bret said himself that he felt the company was using him as a paper champion around this time period. He was only winning the belt in late 1995, so he could drop it again to Shawn Michaels. Bret would regain the title at the 1995 Survivor Series in the third Hart vs Diesel match to happen on pay-per-view, only this time there would be no outside interference. The match was booked as a no disqualification encounter, and this is where things get interesting. Bret and Diesel were babyfaces going into the 1995 Survivor Series, and it's just really odd that the WWF would book two good guys in a no DQ match. This was usually reserved for the classic villain versus hero bouts. Diesel had a match with the British Bulldog at In Your House 4 where Bret Hart served as a guest commentator. During the bout, Diesel got drop-kicked out of the ring, and when Bret tried to stop Diesel from falling on the announce table, Big Daddy Cool pushed the Hitman. A little later on, after being provoked, Bret Hart attacked Davey Boy, leading to Diesel getting disqualified. Diesel was upset about how things turned out, and this resulted in Bret and Nash brawling to end the show. WWF President Gorilla Monsoon then announced that a match had been signed, Bret Hart vs Diesel, and it was scheduled to take place at the 1995 Survivor Series. Because of the interference that happened in previous matches, Monsoon added a no disqualification stipulation to the match. There had to be a decisive winner at the pay-per-view. After the announcement was made, Bret Hart cut a promo where he said the Survivor Series match is going to feature two friends going to war, and the no disqualification rule works in the Hitman's favour. The following week, Diesel said the rules actually benefit Big Daddy Cool. This is going to be the third and likely last time Diesel's going to face the Hitman, and Diesel doesn't think the Hitman has a chance. The best part about the build-up though, and really the only thing substantial that happened in the weeks leading up to the Survivor Series, happened on the November 13th episode of Raw, when Diesel and Bret were interviewed by Vince McMahon. From separate locations, Diesel and Bret talked about their upcoming match, and the real story of the Survivor Series main event was laid out during this interview. Diesel says that Bret is good, but Diesel's currently the WWF Champion, which means right now he's the best. When Bret gets a chance to speak, boy, he really goes off on one. Vince asks Bret, what does the Hitman feel about Diesel being the leader of the new generation? And Bret says, and I quote, well, what does that make me? Bret takes us back to the 1994 Survivor Series when he lost the title to Bob Backlund, and the Hitman says his title reign should never have ended in that Backlund match, and therefore Bret should have been champion right up until this very point. So in a roundabout way, Bret is saying that Diesel should never have been WWF Champion at all. It should have been Bret Hart leading the way all this time. The same thing happened at the Royal Rumble. No winner was declared, and so Bret was never defeated. Diesel snaps back though.
He didn't beat me, and I don't think that anything was settled.
I jackknifed you.
Bret is clearly getting under Diesel's skin. He says the Royal Rumble match was Diesel's hardest fought bout of his whole title reign, and again, Diesel snaps back.
And don't toot your own horn. Shawn Michaels gave me a run for my money too.
So in any event,
Vince McMahon wonders if there's some professional jealousy here between the two. Bret says he isn't jealous of Diesel, he has respect for his opponent, and his title reign is a remarkable accomplishment, but Bret can't help himself. He goes on about how he and Shawn pushed Diesel with technical wrestling. Diesel has beaten all these big guys, but it's the guys like Hart and Michaels who really test Big Daddy Cool. Bret implies that Diesel's opponents have been handpicked in order to avoid skilled opponents, and Diesel says the first guy who got a shot at his title was Bret Hart at the Royal Rumble, so Bret's argument is null and void. Diesel also says that he wrestled guys like Shawn Michaels and Owen Hart, so he hasn't tried to actively avoid anybody. When asked about his game plan, Diesel says he'll do what he does best at Survivor Series. He's gonna use his power to beat Bret up. He's not trying to earn points in an amateur wrestling match. Bret says that this is going to be one of his hardest matches. Hart's game plan is to stretch the match out as much as he can to wear Diesel out, and he has to change his strategy in comparison to their previous encounters on pay-per-view. Diesel says Bret is a cornerstone of the World Wrestling Federation, but the thing is, Diesel is now bigger, stronger, and smarter than what he was at the beginning of the year. Things are just going to play out differently this time at the Survivor Series. Bret says he's only got one title shot all year, and the way he sees it, Diesel is walking around with his title belt. I've watched this interview quite a few times, and I know people might not like this, but Bret comes off as really entitled here. Kevin Nash looks humble in comparison, and maybe a few things Bret said were true, but the way he says it sometimes, he almost comes across as a heel. Still, this is a good piece of WWF television from 1995, and good pieces of WWF television during 95 can be a little hard to come by. The big takeaway here though, and what you need to keep in mind while watching the match, is that Bret Hart said that Diesel gets caught out by technical wrestlers, and in order to make sure that doesn't happen, Diesel is going to do what he does best, and that's simply beat Bret up without caring about technical wrestling ability. Right, let's look at the match then, one of my favourite matches of 1995 and one of the best matches from the whole new generation era. The Hitman comes out wearing his all-pink attire, and Big Daddy Cool walks into the US Air Arena looking extremely confident. The Hitman gets to hold the title just before the opening bell, and he likes what he sees. The two men circle the ring and our match is underway. To set the tone, Diesel instantly removes a turnbuckle pad and Bret does the exact same thing. Vince McMahon reminds us that there's no time limit here and the WWF will reach out to cable companies in order to keep the live feed going should the match go over the allotted pay-per-view time. After building up a little tension with a stare down, the Hitman tries to bring Diesel into the corner, but this turns out to be a big mistake. Diesel said he's going to use his power to beat up Bret Hart, and that's exactly what happens. Big Daddy Cool absolutely destroys the Hitman here. Bret tries to escape, but Diesel brings him right back into the corner. Diesel's pretty much doing what he said he was going to do in that interview. He's simply beating up his opponent. The only way Bret can create some distance is by rolling out of the ring, but Diesel follows the Hitman and Bret ends up getting dropped on the guardrail. When Diesel throws Bret back inside the ropes, the Hitman backs off from his opponent and he rolls out of the ring again. A small chorus of boos can be heard here and Diesel begins choking Bret on the outside. When Bret gets thrown into the ring for a second time, he begins to fight back, aiming for Diesel's left leg. This brings the fans back with Bret, but Diesel shuts Hart down with nothing but sheer power. The two men have kinda established a David and Goliath scenario right from the get-go where Bret is going to have to try to outsmart his opponent. Diesel, however, is looking totally unstoppable. Bret again gets knocked out of the ring and Hart gets thrown into the ring steps. After smashing his opponent's back into the ring post, Diesel grabs a steel chair and Bret takes a shot across the back. All hope seems lost already. Back inside the ring, Bret gets whipped into the corner and after the Hitman crumbles to the mat, Diesel signals for the end. Diesel wants to end it early just like he said he would during the Raw interview. Big Daddy Cool goes for the jackknife, but Bret holds on to Diesel's leg. The two men struggle with Diesel still trying to perform his finisher, and Bret gets out of this predicament by applying a wrist lock while biting Diesel's arm. Bret's plan of technically outsmarting Diesel has gone out the window as the Hitman bites Diesel's forehead before raking Big Daddy Cool's face. And when Bret jumps on Diesel to apply a sleeper, he begins scratching his opponent's face again. Bret Hart has seemingly went into survival mode. Noticing that he has stunned his opponent and having survived the initial onslaught, Bret refocuses and he begins implementing his strategy. It's time for the Hitman to start working on Diesel's leg. Bret does all he can to weaken the body part. The Hitman systematically attacks the leg while Diesel screams in agony. The longer this goes on for, the more it suits the Hitman. Bret applies a figure 4 but Diesel makes it to the ropes. The referee screams at Bret to release the hold, but remember, it's no disqualification. Bret doesn't have to do anything. Eventually the Hitman lets go, but he goes straight back to attacking the leg. Bret has not once tried to hurt any other part of Diesel's body but the left leg and knee, and it just makes for a much more engrossing match. Bret tries to end it with a sharpshooter. The first attempt results in Diesel poking the Hitman in the eye, and the second attempt sees Diesel pushing Bret into the exposed turnbuckle. Knowing that he might have blew his chance and knowing Diesel is going to try and beat him down again, Bret Hart instantly begins defending himself, putting his arms up to try and block the upcoming beating the Hitman is about to endure. Diesel doesn't go for Bret's face, he goes for Bret's back. But Bret's ring awareness allows him to duck underneath the bottom rope and ram Diesel's leg into the ring post not once, but twice. Bret then uses some cord to tether Diesel to the ring post and the Hitman drops an elbow on Big Daddy Cool. And then the Hitman goes out to grab a steel chair. Diesel wakes up though, and the champion is able to fend off the Hitman with a boot to the face. Nash tries to grab the chair while still tethered to the ring post, but Bret stops him. The Hitman takes control of the chair once again and Diesel takes a complete beating. Bret begins striking Diesel's left leg and Diesel screams in pain. Mr. Perfect on commentary says he's never seen Bret Hart be so vicious before. Bret takes the chair and he goes up to the top rope, but Diesel somehow manages to get to his feet and Bret gets launched across the ring. Nash remembers to sell the injured leg before untying the cord around his ankle. Bret rushes into Diesel, but the Hitman gets choked by the cord, the same cord that Bret introduced to the match. And again, Diesel remembers to sell the leg when going for a sidewalk slam. I point this out because it's lost in modern wrestling, it really is. Diesel hits the sidewalk slam and now it's anyone's guess who's going to win this thing. Bret again gets launched into the exposed turnbuckle and Diesel just falls to the ground. His leg isn't holding up. Diesel limps over to Bret and he sets Bret up on the second rope. Usually Big Daddy Cool would come running at his opponent next, but he can't do it. He walks over to Bret before crashing down with all his body weight. The look on Bret Hart's face says it all. Diesel manages to hit Snake Eyes, but it takes him a long time to carry Bret to the corner. Nash goes for it one more time, but Bret counters. Diesel's head gets smashed into the exposed turnbuckle. The Hitman then builds up a ton of momentum, nailing Diesel with a few punches before landing a middle rope bulldog. Diesel manages to kick out at 2. A side Russian leg sweep isn't enough to keep Diesel down, and when Big Daddy Cool gets to his feet, Bret clotheslines him over the top rope. Bret then goes for a plancha. It looks like Diesel is going to catch him, but the champ just walks away and the Hitman smashes the floor. Bret is now hurt. He limps around the outside before climbing up to the apron, but Diesel is right there to greet the excellence of execution, and Bret gets put through a table. Keep in mind that in the WWF during this time period, table bumps did not happen frequently. This is it. This is the big bump of the match. All Diesel has to do now is finish off the Hitman. Diesel has it won. He softens up Bret Hart, he throws the Hitman into the ring, and he signals for the jackknife. Diesel puts Hart in position for the finish, but the Hitman falls straight to the floor. He can't defend himself any longer. Bret can't continue. Diesel decides to try one more time instead of just pinning his opponent, but Bret had everybody fooled. The Hitman surprises everyone by quickly rolling Diesel up with a small package, and the Hitman wins the match. Diesel's reaction tells the story. He was caught out by the excellence of execution. Realizing he just lost the WWF Championship, Diesel goes on a rampage. Bret takes 2 jackknives and any official who tries to stop Diesel gets taken out. Diesel screams, "I'm back," as he stands over the new WWF Champion. Big Daddy Cool seemingly finding his old self again after being embarrassed by the Hitman. Bret sure doesn't look like a winner as Survivor Series goes off the air, but the Hitman did it. He became a 3-time WWF Champion at the end of 1995. It looked like Diesel was going to go full-blown heel, and what you need to remember here is that the company had pushed Kevin Nash so hard as the face of WWF, and this was the end of that long push. Fans wondered what Diesel meant when he said, "I'm back," and the answers were given the next night on Raw. In one of the first examples of a worked shoot happening in the WWF, Diesel said after losing the title he smiled at himself for the first time in a year. Diesel says that Vince McMahon tried to make him a corporate puppet, and McMahon had missed the mark on Big Daddy Cool. After winning the belt, Diesel was brought into merchandising and marketing meetings where he was told to be more PC and be more corporate, and Big Daddy Cool Diesel hated it. The old Diesel is now back. If fans want to support him, they can, but Diesel isn't going to go out of his way to please the WWF and Vince McMahon any longer. This was a great interview, by the way. It was instantly more captivating and believable than most of his other promo work in 1995. When watching the Bret vs Diesel match back, you have to remember that it's a match from 1995, a year that many called the absolute worst in WWE history, although I don't necessarily agree with that statement, not with how things are going nowadays. The whole match is a story from start to end, with the interview beforehand giving us the prologue. Both men's battle plans were laid out for everyone to see. Diesel looked like a monster from the opening bell, something that he always should have been, and when he got hurt, his selling was brilliant. And Bret Hart worked hard to give Diesel a much needed good match after having so many duds in 1995. The Hitman brought out the best in Diesel here, and I'd argue that Bret done a better job of highlighting Diesel's strengths in comparison to Shawn Michaels. The story of Hart using his technical abilities just like he said he would was also fantastic. The Survivor Series main event turned into a technician versus powerhouse bout that could have went either way, but in the end, Bret outsmarted Diesel, even if it did cause the Hitman to get beaten within an inch of his life afterwards. Fantastic work here from both men, easily one of Diesel's finest performances inside a WWF ring. And this is about you should go out of your way to check out, needless to say. I hope you enjoyed this video, thank you for watching, and take care.